All right, everybody, we're back with another episode of Around the Draft. This time we're doing the big boys, the big guys, the guys that don't get enough credit ever, but are always the most important part of a team most often, it feels like. The offensive linemen. Across the board, doing top 5 tackles, top 5 guard center guys, and weirdly enough, a lot of guard center guys in this class, in my opinion. A lot of guys
Yeah.
play those spots. But we'll talk about both of those spots here today. We're going to talk about our favorite players there. Maybe some guys aren't inside of our top 5, but definitely want to still mention. Maybe there'll be guys that we don't line up on, right? Maybe the order's just different, or there's guys that completely different. I'm curious to see with you guys because we haven't really talked a lot about the offensive line spot yet, so kind of never gets its due, but today it will. So before we jump into that, though, guys, definitely check us out at Around the Block. At ATB Network on Twitter. You can find our broadcast there. You can also find us here on YouTube if you're watching here on the ATB Network YouTube as well. But you guys excited about talking offensive linemen finally? I wanted to have this, but as soon as possible because we tend not to talk about them nearly enough.
Yeah, I'm hyped. The big boys are always interesting to scout because they are just like anomalies of human nature. Yeah, and I think what interests me is the fact that I think steadily over the last few years, especially, like the interior has become so focused on and valuable in like comparison to tackles. Not more valuable, obviously, but like tackle was like the spot. You know what I mean? Like you get a tackle and you're like, we'll figure the rest out. And now, as we saw too in free agency, teams are willing to pay a premium, to get that interior presence because as much as you could have stalwart tackles on either side, the pocket collapsing up the middle, I mean, that basically cuts the field in half because it forces your quarterback off center and it just disrupts the pocket very well. So I think this year's offensive line class as a whole, we're going to jump into it. Like as a whole, it's a really impressive class.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Felix. I think free agency is oftentimes a way to tell which direction position value is going, right? Like not just the draft, but free agency especially, because at the end of the day, draft picks, like some teams are going to take guys just because they think they're the best player. It doesn't really matter about position value. You can ask the Detroit Lions, last year, we all kind of were like, what are you doing? Turns out they were probably smarter than the rest of us, right? But, some teams do that. In free agency, though, money talks, right? Like money is what counts. And if you are a team that really desperately needs a position, sometimes you'll overspend. But across the board, the interior is getting paid at a level we haven't seen them get paid at, right? So, and I think the weird thing about it is there's always been this idea that like interior pressure is so much more important and valuable to an offense and a defense, like not allowing it and having that ability because with tackles, if they get beat, if you have a smart quarterback or if you have a guy who's mobile, it's much easier to navigate the pocket up into it and move out than it is to try to get wide outside the pocket because then it creates issues for your tackles, not just your interior guys when you have to do that. But we've never really seen that come up in value in terms of like how high these guys get drafted. I think partly it is just easier to find competent interior linemen than it is, obviously offensive tackles. So that plays into that. But it's still like if I had to have a weakness, there's some teams where, especially depending on the quarterback, where like I might rather have a weaker right tackle or a left tackle than like two interior spots or a center. So it's going to be interesting to see how high some of the true interior guys go in this draft because that might signal even more of a shift in that direction. But again, across the board, this line class is one of the better ones we've seen in a long time. Like the league desperately needs this. I'll be honest with you. Offensive line play has definitely been kind of trending downwards in terms of the average play for a while now, and it's hard with the way the offenses are going in college and in the NFL to come in and play well right away, but I think some of these guys are going to have a chance to do that. We did a couple comments here. What's this all about?
Football.
Yeah, it is draft. If you were, we're talking draft stuff with the offensive tackles, offensive linemen, and then J.C. Latham to Bengal. Not Bengals, Bengal. If you guys aren't familiar, he's a YouTuber. I'm sure he would like J.C. Latham on his Giants if you guys know who I'm talking about. But you guys need all the help you can get. You did sign a lot of guards though, Felix. You have about 12 guards, I think, on the roster now. So maybe if you put two of them together, you might get a tackle too. I'm not sure. You kind of have to play around with that a little bit, but no. Anyway, we're gonna jump into tackles first. Obviously, despite what we just talked about with the interior line kind of getting more valuable over time, still want to talk about this tackle class. It is one of the better ones, at least that I can remember for a while now across the board. A lot of guys that we're not going to talk about today that are probably going to make an impact in their first 2 years or so in the league. But I'm going to go back from, obviously 5 to 1. I want to start with Felix, actually, here. We'll start with you. I know I went first in our last grouping here. Who do you have as your 5th tackle for the 2024 drafts?
Okay, so my 5th tackle is actually the man that was just mentioned, J.C. Latham.
Okay. All right.
A lot to like about Latham. Again, like I sort of referenced earlier, the stature really sticks out. It's a massive human. He's someone that I thought was an impressive mover, especially at his size. And I actually enjoyed the fact that he was he's very like rhythmic from like the perspective of like his kick slide, right off the snap. Really smooth in terms of his feet. And I thought he was pretty impressive in terms of like I wrote hand strength was like something that really stuck out to me. It's like once he gets his hands on guys, you see an obvious slow in their momentum, and he definitively is able to lock guys down. I think something about him that I kind of noticed is in terms of like detractions or negatives. There's times where I think he kind of loses balance, and if he's kick sliding left and somebody is rushing and is obviously able to connect with that outside shoulder, he's not really too adept at sort of redistributing like his base to get it under him and collecting his feet to maintain like that anchor and actually kind of catch them. So it's something that I noticed particularly off like speed rushers, because he has the agility, but it seems like in terms of their advanced like hand technique, it's something that he doesn't necessarily counteract like very well. But something I will say, like even though I have him at 5, he's one of my low key kind of like favorite prospects, because I feel like a lot of the things that I see that I don't necessarily like are very coachable. So I think he's a very high class player. And I did also notice, and this was something that like I found not necessarily in watching a ton of tape, but like it's a note that I just saw getting passed around a lot, but that he's like prone to a lot of penalties.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something that is also a definitive concern, because you can be strong, you can be fast and everything, but you also have to be polished and refined. So I have him at 5 for some of those like negative reasons, but I do think he has like his arrow pointing upward, definitely.
Yeah, I will say, Jake, I'm not sure if you have him in your top 5, but he's 6 for me, Felix, so he's right outside. I struggle with him because I feel like the more I watch him, I think he'd have a better chance of being a Pro Bowl level player at guard. And I decided not to put him in the interior offensive line because I think he's going to be drafted to play tackle. I don't think he said he can't play tackle. But I wonder, the power profile is certainly interesting, although I think it does kind of come and go at times. I think that his size is a factor a lot, but it isn't always as much of one as I think maybe I'd like. You talked about like he has the athleticism at his size to stick a tackle, but I think the technique is where he falls short. And he is a younger player, he's 21 years old. I think you talked about like his inability sometimes to kind of match moves being put on him is where those penalties come from a lot of the time, where he's trying to just kind of latch on at the last second because he knows he's beat, and that's how he gets those penalties a lot of the time. I wonder, I don't think, like, for example, I don't think he would play very well as a rookie. Like, I think if you asked him to start right away, he would eventually get there probably, but he would have a rough go of it probably his first year. And a lot of offensive tackles do, so that's not something new. I mean, you know how Andrew Thomas did as a rookie. Felix, now look at him, how good he's playing now. But, guys like this, though, they have a tendency, I think, to rely too much on their physical gifts, right? And sometimes it takes them a while to get to the point where they can match and mirror the edge rushers they're going to play at the next level. So he's a guy that it's going to matter, I think, where he goes to ultimately. Like, how early is he taken? Some people have him as high as literally the first guy off the board in this class. Like, I think it's someone for NFL Network. I want to say maybe Zerline or whoever it is. I think he has him as offensive tackle 1. And you look at the measurables, and you're like, okay, I can understand that. But I think the play on the field right now is certainly a little ways away from being, that upper tier. But what do you think, Jake?
Yeah.
Do you have him in your top 5?
So I had him at 5.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Okay,
we
so
all
he's
kind
5
of
for you.
feel the same about
Okay.
him. You guys pretty much hit the nail on the head. One thing I noticed a lot that I think could help if he plays guard in the NFL is Felix kind of touched on it, but I, f- I think he could be a little bit more mobile in the hips, and especially in terms of pass rushers cutting inside was one thing
Yeah,
I
his
noticed.
inside moves it's for
Yeah,
anyone his size is tough.
and I think maybe playing him at guard could help that because there's a little bit less space for
Yeah,
defenders
playing
to
in the
make
phone booth
moves
more
like that.
often. Yeah.
But I mean, he has one of the higher ceilings of any lineman in this class for me, just with his size. I mean, he's I think 6'6", like 340
I
ish,
think, and he
which
was
is just
listed at
insane.
360 in Alabama, so he actually slimmed down at
Oh,
the combine.
Jesus Christ.
So, like, he played at that weight apparently. Now maybe they overinflated his weight a little bit, but if he can
Yeah,
play at that weight, then yeah, he's certainly
yeah.
a freak.
Yeah, so he does have some of those issues that I think will be worked on, and I agree. I think they are very coachable, but I wouldn't
Yeah,
be surprised if he doesn't play as well in his first year. But he's very smart. His athleticism for his frame is just insane.
yeah, he's
So
very good there.
yeah, I like him. I think he's a pretty high ceiling
Yeah.
prospect, but I think with some of those issues, that's why he's down at 5 for me.
Yeah, and for me having a 6 before I give you guys my 5, like that, I still think he's probably worth a first round pick. Like I
Yeah,
don't think it's one of those deals where like because this is a tackle class where there's at least 6 guys that are probably going to at least garner first round interest, if not go in the first round, and for good reason. Like this is not really necessarily a slight on any of the guys that aren't ranked at like 1, 2, or 3. Like it's
Yeah.
just one of those classes, right? Where maybe last couple of years there's not been too many elite tackles outside of the very top guys, but this class could get you a bunch of them possibly, depending on how things break. My 5th guy, actually, and I'm lower on him than I wanted to be, and I know how much people love him. And again, this is not so much a slight on his ability, but I think more so that there's a chance that he also ends up maybe being better in the interior, which is going to knock him down a little bit. Talize Fuaga, or Fuanga, actually, we found out. So with an N, it kind of sounds like there's an N in there. I found out recently is how you say it. Out of Oregon State tackle. He's a mauler, which is awesome. Like his ability to maul in the run game is as good as it gets in this class, right? Like even though there's a couple tackles that are technically a little bigger than him, no one has the mentality and the ability to block in the run game like he does. It's a different level than the rest of the guys. However, I just worry that he's never going to be more than about an average pass protector. I think there's a really good chance that happens. And if you're a right tackle in the NFL, it used to be less of an issue, but now the people are realizing, like, listen, everybody's going to have to pass block against these edge rushers. So many teams have multiple guys who can legitimately, convert speed to power, can win edges. It's really hard to survive a tackle if you're at least not a good pass protector. And I think he certainly could be one, and he was a decent one in college. The foot speed sometimes leaves a little bit to be desired, especially in his kick slide. I think on the move, he moves very well. He is a bigger guy, like 6'6". I think he was 330 something at the combine. He's certainly got the size profile as a tackle. Again, I wonder, like, would he be like an all pro guard though? Maybe, like, if he could just kind of lean into his strengths as a player, instead of having to try to bring all those other skills up to par to be a Pro Bowl level tackle. That's really the biggest thing with him, not so much a talent perspective. It's will the rest of the game come along fast enough for him to stay at tackle long term. That's my big thing with him.
yeah. He's one of those guys I watched where pretty much everything I liked about him was in the run game, and pretty much
Yes.
everything I didn't like was in the pass
And
game.
again, like, yeah, it's tough at tackle, right? Like,
Yeah.
not saying he can't get there, but that's
It's
what it comes down to.
yeah. I mean, he's an absolute dominant run blocker. I loved
Yes.
everything I saw there. I just worry. I had him at 4, so
Okay.
I do like him.
Yeah.
But one of my worries is there's just so many good edge rushers in the NFL that if he's not able to be at least an average pass blocker, I think that could really hurt him.
Yeah.
But I mean, as a run blocker, man, it's just hard to look past that.
Yeah, it's really hard. That's why I still have him in my top 5, because
Yeah,
when you're that good at one part of the game, and a part of the game that is probably going to continue to come back a little bit more, because as we've seen, so many defenses now are getting lighter, they're getting faster, they're playing more off coverage, they're trying to prevent the big plays in the passing game. Guess what happens when you do that? couple teams are going to be like, well, what if we just ran the ball 50 times and told you to get over it, basically? Like, that seems like what my Steelers are trying to do. So, like that's you got to zig when they're zagging or, whatever. So I think that he would still provide a lot of value as a tackle, as a run blocker. But again, he's going to have to show he can hold up well enough as a pass blocker. So,
yeah.
But what did you have him at, Felix? You have him in your top 5? Oh, you're muted. Let me get you here. Oh,
what are you doing?
Yeah, you're good.
No, he is not in my top 5, and it's on a technicality. I will get to that.
Okay, so you have him interior. Okay, that's
well, no, I have him as a tackle, but
okay.
I have somebody else as a tackle that I think some people think is interior, who's higher than him.
Okay.
So
that's why. Okay,
I have him at 6. So otherwise, if I take that guy out, he would be 5. So
you just have the Latham thing with where I have him at 6 and you have Fuaga at 6. So
yeah,
that makes sense. Gotcha.
And
okay.
I think a lot of what you guys said is exactly how I felt. I watched a little bit of his tape and I thought like Tevin Jenkins. That was like the first thing.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of
this Mauler, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's I feel like concerns in foot quickness, not a lot of like hip fluidity. And I feel like the hip fluidity thing is an important thing. Is that's something that even if you move to the interior, you have very agile, hand refined like interior rushers.
Yeah. More so than ever, yeah.
Yeah, if they just get that one little bit of an angle, and that's something I thought he didn't do well either, is like the taking angles in pass protection and like understanding how to like wall someone off. That wasn't something that he did that well. But yeah, like it's like A+ run blocker, and he's like a C minus pass protector. So he's borderline top 5, but he's 6 for me.
Yeah, it's tough with a guy like him because if he figures it out as a pass blocker enough, it doesn't even have to be anything spectacular. He's going to be a problem for defensive players because if you get him on the move, especially, or even if he's just down blocking and collapsing the defensive line, like it's going to be really tough. We have a comment here from Jeff. Who's going to be bold enough to put Jordan Morgan or Kingsley Suamatia? I don't have either of those guys in my top 5. Morgan is really interesting because I think he could hold up a tackle. I do, but I do think that he might be a better guard too. And Suamatia, he's such a I don't even want to say project. He's just raw coming out of obviously smaller schools. So I want to see him go somewhere in the 2nd or 3rd round and like get a chance to develop. But I think he has as much potential as some of the guys we're going to talk about today. I will say that much. A good comment there, Jeff, though. But let's move to our top 4 then. So I've went last, so I'll jump back in. So I have Amarius Mims at 4. I have out of Georgia. The only reason he's 4 and not 3 is because ultimately with offensive tackles, as much as I want to go for the upside, because you want to get a guy that could kind of be one of the top guys honestly in the world of what they do. There's just not a lot to go off of with him tape wise. I think all of the tape we have on him is pretty good, but we have less than 1,000 snaps of him playing college football. And it's just really hard to get a full grasp of a guy with that little snaps because you don't get to see if teams, as often as some of these other guys, like what do teams try to do to him to beat him because they don't have enough scouting report on him to try to figure out what you can do to beat him, right? Like, does he struggle with certain things that maybe he just didn't get a chance to see at the college level, stuff like that. Like, so that worries me a little bit. But if you want to talk about a freak athlete, just in a freak of nature, like measurables wise, 6'7", 340, like almost like a 5-second flat 40-yard dash. It just moves differently than guys his size are supposed to move. Just fluid athlete, does everything very well at the college level. And I think that it should translate to the next level. But again, between injuries and just not playing a ton at a stacked Georgia team, like he's just a big question mark, right? Like his potential, I think, is as high as anyone in the class. But again, like what team can he go to and realize that? Like I think if he goes to a Bengals or somewhere like that, or even the Steelers, where like I'd like to see him, link up with his Georgia teammate and Broderick Jones. They've shown that sometimes they're really good at developing them and sometimes they're not, right? Like, I think that if he has to play early, I don't know what the results are really going to be because, again, everything he showed at college level, like, tells me that he can come in and play well as a rookie, but he hasn't played enough snaps for him to, like, really define who he is as a player yet. And I think that's kind of the biggest question mark for me. But where'd you have as your top 4? There, Jake.
I didn't have Mims in my top 5. I had him at 6, but he was right there with Latham. And I
get that. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel pretty similarly about the two. I mean, Mims has the same. He's actually, I think, a little bit taller, but he has the same type of size and athleticism combo as Latham. But yeah, I think just there's not much to watch of him.
Yeah, I saw less issues on tape with him than I did Latham, but again, how much of that is because he just didn't get a lot of reps against guys and that they could kind of find counters to his game and figure out how to beat him. Like that's something you have to think about, unfortunately.
Yeah, I would agree. I actually had him at number 4 as well.
Okay, so you have him at 4 too. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's basically what you guys said, the combination of the lack of experience and then just the elite athleticism and the elite
measurables we've rarely ever seen.
Yes, yeah. And then, the tape that is there, he's a relatively dominant player, and I feel like if there was more tape, more starting experience with that level of performance, we would probably be talking about him as one of the top tackles, maybe in the top 5-10, if he had the resume to back it up, but freak athlete. And I mainly have him at 4 because the lack of starting experience, but he just seems so moldable, and the potential there is absolutely tremendous, because he's another guy that I just watch on tape and I'm like, I like this guy. I think he can become something great. It's just about getting there.
Very much a question mark.
Yeah, definitely him at 4 for me.
Yeah, and then I think, Jake, you said 4 was Fuaga for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have all our 4 mentioned here. So, well, I'll let you go here, Jake. Who's your third offensive tackle?
Okay. So my third offensive tackle is Troy Fatanu.
Me as well, actually.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're in agreement.
Look at that.
We're in agreement at 3. Okay, there we go. Let's just talk about it. Go ahead,
yeah.
Jake. Go first, then.
I like a lot of things about him. He's a bit smaller, which it's kind of hard to be the same size as the previous guys we talked about.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, it's not really fair.
But he's very, very quick. I think he gets off the line very quick. He has a quick first step. I like his footwork. He's able to move his feet pretty fast. He has heavy, strong hands. I think one of my only issues with him is that I think he's so quick and he gets a little bit over aggressive sometimes. His hands, he has strong hands, but I think his hand technique could be a little bit better. But I think he's one of the best athletes of any lineman in this class.
Yeah.
He's pretty strong.
Especially,
yeah. And he has one thing I noticed that I thought stuck out from some of the other tackles is his lateral quickness.
Yes.
It's like he's able to get side to side pretty fast, and that's pretty important at the tackle position. So he kind of checks all the boxes for me. I'd like to see him maybe be a little bit less aggressive, because that will definitely be penalized against NFL rushers, but there's a lot for me to like about him.
I'll jump in. I think for me, when I watch him, and this is kind of I think that most people will expect this, so it's not really that much of a spoiler, but him and my number 2 tackle have a lot of the same stuff going on, where I think that they're significantly better pass blockers and run blockers. And the main reason why I have one lower than the other is a combination of the age factor and also a combination of just the athleticism and overall size factor. I think Fatanu is a really great athlete, especially for someone playing tackle at a smaller size, because usually those guys, you kind of just, whenever they're smaller tackles, a lot of the time in the college level, it's simply because they don't have anyone else to play and they need to play a smaller tackle. He plays tackle because he's just really great at tackle, right? And I think people were worried, and even we were talking about it before the measurables came in on him. Was he going to be able to stay at tackle, right? Was he going to be a guy that maybe is better inside? Having 34-inch arms and his athleticism at a shorter stature firmly makes him a tackle for me, because you talked about it, his lateral quickness. When you are lower to the ground and have a lower center of gravity than some of the other guys in this class, and you can move that quickly side to side, it becomes very, very difficult to get you and catch you in a bull rush in a bad spot, because you can get to where you need to be and cut off angles and pass protection, right? The issue with him is that I don't know if he's going to be a very good run blocker outside of maybe zone schemes, right? He doesn't have a ton of power profile. He is a smaller tackle. his power is good enough, I think, especially as a protector, like a pass protector, but it's still going to be an issue at times. I did see him kind of get bowled over at times against bull rushes. It's just part of the thing with him that you have to accept when you have a smaller tackle, though. I don't think that's necessarily a problem. And I think he anchors better than maybe he would normally because of that lower center of gravity, right? I think it helps him in that regard. But again, like he's a rock solid player. If you need somebody to walk in and help protect your quarterback day one, he's about as good as it gets in this class, and just being able to do that. And if you run his own scheme, like him in a Shanahan style scheme makes total sense for a bunch of reasons, because it will mitigate some of the run game concerns for me, because I don't think he's ever going to be like a great power gap scheme guy. But I think he can do all those things well enough to kind of offset some of the difference between his pass protection and his run blocking. So,
definitely. Yeah. Again, I had him at 3 as well. He's kind of who I was referencing in terms of.
I figured, yeah.
Yeah, because I definitely could be like an interior guy.
He could for sure.
I totally think he's a tackle.
Yeah, he doesn't have to.
Yeah, and I think Jake really nailed it for me. Like the athleticism, the quickness, laterally, just he's ideal at what you want at tackle. Can lack in the run game, can lack the power there, but a lot of it, I wonder if it's just technique driven, because he has that lower center of gravity. He has the mass. He's a good size player. I think he just doesn't either consistently get low enough. He doesn't like hit his target like right where he wants to, low enough, consistently enough, with the leg drive enough. But as a pass blocker, I mean, he's fantastic. And I think seeing the success that you saw, oh my God, why am I blanking? Their quarterback in Washington. Penix. Yeah, seeing the level of success Penix had at Washington, it's because he had a very, very clean pocket all the time. And the thing that sticks out the most though about is it Faltano?
I think it's I forget the
exactly. I think you're right.
Faltano, okay. I think it's Faltano.
I think what really sticks out to me is his like aggressiveness. It's how aggressive he is. I think Jake said that like
it's one of those double-edged swords, right? Where it's like sometimes it's awesome, sometimes it's not.
Yeah. But I love that. I love that tenacity, and I love that he's willing to like attack rushers and not let them just come to him and just play catch.
I agree with that,
That's something that I really like, and that's part of why I feel optimistic about him as a run blocker, and I have him at 3 because I feel like the edge is there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like the nastiness is there. It's just technique and refinement in a run game. And I mean, Washington wasn't necessarily running that much compared to other teams. Last 2
they were a lot of zone with them and a lot of like outside stuff.
So I think he has a high ceiling. I think in a lot of times I've like played around in mocks, I've had him at like with New Orleans because they just need help all along the line. So I'm like, all right, you can put him wherever, tackle, guard. But I like him a lot.
Yeah, I think the last thing I want to mention with him, and like because we've been talking about the power aspect, I think it's really just his lower half isn't as strong as you'd want for a guy that's a lower center of gravity type player. Like I think you could tell that he doesn't carry a lot of his weight there. And, maybe he gets to the NFL. He's already 23, but maybe he can kind of reshape his body a little bit. Maybe he can get a little stronger in the lower half. That could get him to a level where his run blocking in a power situation is good enough. But I still think even if it doesn't, like I think his movement skills as a zone blocker will kind of get him out of that being a problem for him if he goes to the right team. So it's really going to matter then like where he goes. But still, again, pass protection is king, as much as the run game might be kind of making a comeback in the next couple of years based on what defense is doing, but still need to be able to protect the passer at all costs, and he certainly can do that. So let's get into our top 2 tackles here then. So I'm going to assume for a second that we all have the same top 2 and probably the same order if I had to assume. Do we all have Olu at 2?
Yeah, I do.
No.
Okay, all right. So we'll talk about Olu first then, because Jake and I have him at 2. Then Felix, I'm assuming you have him at 1, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's fair. So
no, he's at 9. No, okay.
No, he's at 9.
No.
My top tackle, Patrick Paul. No. Anyway, let's talk about Olu then for a second here, and then Felix can give a spiel on why he's number 1. But for me, the simple thing as far as why he's ahead of Fatanu, like I mentioned a second ago, he's a slightly bigger in terms of weight, but just bigger, longer, overall more athletic player, even than Fatano, I think, especially in pass protection. And he has a lot of the same strengths and weaknesses to me. Where as a run blocker, I don't know if he's ever going to be very good. I just don't know if he really has that edge as a run blocker. He has all the size and athleticism to do it. But again, similar to Fatano, I think his power is where he's going to lack a little bit in the NFL. You saw in the Ohio State game this year that everybody references about why he's not a great tackle, or when they try to say he's not good or whatever. It's that game against the power rushers that Ohio State had out there with Sawyer, and I forget how to say his last name for the other Ohio State pass rusher, but those two really put on a clinic against him. And the thing about Olu is that if you get into his chest, if he allows you into his chest, you can walk him backwards. His anchor is not as good as you'd like it to be right now. It doesn't show up that often, though, because his technique and his speed and his ability to kind of win in pass protection is so good that it really just doesn't show up that often. But against NFL rushers, it might show up a little bit more. And I think guys who can convert speed to power really well, if they can get into his chest, it is going to be something that maybe he has a couple really bad losses in his first year as he tries to get stronger and kind of figure stuff out. Yeah. This is a guy who is one of the younger players in the class and is still kind of filling out. I could think he could still add some strength to his frame. Whereas I think Fatanu is kind of who he is as a player at this point in terms of his profile. So I'm less worried about that part with him. And I do think the run blocking, technically, Fatanu probably has a higher ceiling there because I think he can get a little bit stronger and he has more of an edge. But still, I think he'll be good enough. And he did show improvement this past year as a run blocker. He really did. So I think he's firmly number 2 for me. I think that who's obviously our number 1, Jake, I'm going to go ahead and just spoil that right now. I think that he, as good as Fashanu is, I like what Alt does as a complete player. And overall, I just think that he's number 1 tackle. But what do you think with Olu here?
Yeah, I pretty much agree. One thing I noticed when you were talking about, defenders kind of getting into him and pushing him back a bit, I think he plays with his pad level a little bit too high.
Yes, I think he's a very top-heavy type of player right now.
Yeah, that's one thing that's going to have to be fixed at the next level because there's just – I've said it a couple of times now, but there's just too many good pass rushers.
There's too many guys who will take advantage of that if he doesn't clear that up.
Yeah, but with that said, I think by drafting him at the least, you're getting a dominant pass protector. I think I think he's going to be a very successful left tackle protecting players or QB's blind sides. He does pretty much everything well, except for run blocking, as you kind of touched on. That's going to be – it's really for him, it's just the run blocking and – that high pad level that has him behind Alt. I think Alt just kind of is more well-rounded, if that makes sense.
And we'll talk about that for sure with Alt. But, Felix, well, he's your number 1 guy, so give your spiel. Just so you know, you are currently muted. So just wanted to give you a heads up.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think main reason why I have him number 1 is the pure athlete that he is. I think in terms of everyone was impressed, and I was too, the athleticism of Joe Alt, obviously. But I think Olu, what stuck out was that at his stature, his athleticism just seems damn near elite. And I think the athleticism is elite for Joe Alt as well. But I think the frame is something that, while he's huge, I think that is a detraction.
Gotcha. I thought that might be part of it for sure.
Yeah. The biggest thing, and I'll just get right into it since we have the same top, 2, and Alt is my 2. It's very close, but I have Fashanu number 1 because the athleticism is there. I think the power is there. I think the lateral quickness and the movement skills are there. I think he's very quick to collect his feet. I think a big part of you brought up one of his biggest flaws that I noted was he could keep his chest open and available pretty often. But to me, that's something that's very coachable. And I think if he's able to anticipate, whatever I guess plan or hand fighting, whatever it is coming toward him, I think he's very good and capable at understanding how he's going to counteract that. Now, the power issue, I think that's something that definitely did pop off on tape for me. Part of me wonders how much is that him playing that high pad level, playing really tall is probably all that, but I think that's something, again, very coachable because considering his size, he's someone that has the ability to get low. He has bend at the knees, bend at the hips, and it's just about technique refinement and practice. And I think a big part of, and I know Penn State's like one of those major programs, but a big thing with collegiate athletics is like if a guy is great, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So
Yeah.
he's an elite level tackle. They're like, let's not nitpick and let's let him go out there and ball. And there's certain things that at the NFL level you're going to have to really fine tune.
Yeah.
And so I see a lot of things in his game that are fine tunable. And I just think that it's a very, very clear projection as to what he can become. And I think what his baseline is, particularly if he ended up on a team that is very pass happy. Now, alt, I have it to barely at 2. And it's because I think he's a great athlete. The thing I noticed is he's strong as hell. So, like, the moment he gets on somebody, like, he's locking them down. But his length to me is a bit of a concern. He's 6'9", I think, or 6'8.5", or whatever.
He came in just under 6'9" at the combine, so about 6'8.5".
And that's great. He's a wall of a human being on the edge. But there's like times that I noted watching his tape where in pass protection and when he's run blocking, where if he comes out of his stance a little bit too high as a run blocker, if he takes the wrong angle, he's playing catch up and he's trying to use his strength to like make up for it. And there's plays where like Audric Estime breaks off a big run and you see it and he's like taking this defender down and walling him off, and you're like, wow, what a play. But at the same time, like he's lunging. And it's all strength and power that's just so happens to help him out on this rep. And he's probably playing a defensive tackle that is going to be selling insurance. So, you know, and that's the thing for me that sticks out is like as impressive of a body type and frame he has, I really worry about him taking proper angles, and I don't know how much that is something that is moldable and coachable, especially when he has to understand just like angles, his body positioning, his feet, where his anchor is, and then on top of that, he's anticipating what is not just speed rushers, but speed to power rushers, and then guys who just do both very well. Like, you know, first guy that pops in my head is like a Daniel Hunter who can like actually bend the edge, but also just run right through you if he wanted to. So he goes up against a guy like that, and he has to have he has a whole bag of pass rush moves he has to contend with. I wonder if he's just going to be a tall light pole that you just have to get around, as opposed to Fashanu, who I think has such good lateral quickness and feet that at least he can shuffle to get in the way and try to catch him. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just see Alt's tape, and I see a guy who, if he's not keeping his knees bent, he's leaning all the time, and that's something that NFL guys are just going to counter, and then boom, they're on their way. So I get a little concerned about that. They're very close, but definitely, for me, for Shanu's one.
I'll just say with Alt, so I definitely understand why people are concerned about his height at times, because guys that tall, it's just hard for them to consistently get the pad level they need to play with good leverage. However, I will say the vast majority of the time, at least when I watched him, he was able to get his pad level to the right place. And that's why I think even if there is going to be times where it is an issue for him, it's not often enough on tape right now for me to think that it's going to become this huge issue at the next level, right? And he has really good length also, of course, at his size, because he's already 6'8". The other thing is that we have to remember this. Like, this guy was a tight end at one point. Like, his athleticism for his size and his height.
I think he used to play basketball too.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Yeah, like he was like, guys like that tend to always seem like they play basketball. It's like, oh, you're 6'8", go play basketball. So, but like, again, like his athleticism for his frame, we talked about that with some of these other guys. Like, he's not as heavy as Mims or Latham, but this, I mean, he's just rock solid. Like, he built in a lab type of like frame, right? Like, if you wanted to make a tackle like look as imposing as possible, it's this guy. Like, he just looks like a freak. and he moves so well for his size. And like you talked about, like with the lateral agility, I think Fashanu definitely still has him beat there a little bit, but it's not as much of a difference as you would imagine between those two players when you look at their frames. I kind of view him as like Colton Miller on steroids, basically, where it's like, all right, this guy is as big and as like lengthy as a guy like that, but is also powerful for his size and for his frame. It's hard to have that level of power when you're built that way because you're usually going to be a little bit of a lankier player. Not really the case with him. Like he is built very well from top to bottom, and I think you look at like obviously like I'm not the biggest like the grades don't matter to me as much as some of the other tracking data they do, but like he's been one of the most like highly graded players in college football by PFF and other places for the last 2 years. Like he's consistently done it for 2 years in a row against, obviously Notre Dame doesn't have always the best schedule. It kind of depends because they can kind of do whatever they want there. But I think overall, like you watch him play and you're like, man, it's going to be a load for guys to try to get around this guy if he plays with good pad level. Because especially when he leans and he gets into good pad level, not only is he long, but now he's over a little bit. So now he even has more reach because now he's using his height as an advantage a little bit too. Like it's just going to be really hard for other than like elite length speed guys at the next levels. As far as edges go, it's going to be really hard to get around him consistently. So that's why I have him at one. Also, his run blocker, just way more refined than the other guys that are kind of in contention for this spot. I think as a power player, because of his leverage disadvantage, I think it could be hard for him to like gap and do power, but get him on the move in the zone. Like he could probably touch the defensive end without moving. That's just how big this guy is, right? Like it's hard to get around him in the run game and zone too. But go ahead, Jake. What do you
think? Felix actually brought up exactly what my first point was going to be with leaning over a bit. I think for him, and it's hard because at like 6'8" or 6'9", I forget exactly.
Just under
6'9". Being a really tall human being, it's hard to kind of get that bending at the waist. And I think for me, that's the only thing I really noticed. Felix kind of hit it on the head where if his knees aren't bent, then he is kind of leaning. And he doesn't really have that flexibility at the waist, even though he's pretty laterally quick.
Yes.
But for me, he's kind of like the Marvin Harrison Jr. of the line class for me, just in terms of he can kind of do everything really well. And he feels like the highest floor and the highest ceiling to me. I can't see him not. I can't see him not doing well. I could see him maybe failing to reach because he has a lot of expectations. He might not live up to that, but I don't think he is ever going to be bad at all.
There's an element of tackle, especially where taking a guy like Felix knows, taking a guy that can't possibly be bad, in your opinion, it helps, right? Like Evan Neal was considered a great prospect, but there was a couple concerns about him. Maybe he figures it out, Felix. Don't mean to pile on or anything, but I think some guys also don't have position flexibility. Maybe Evan Neal just can't play right tackle, right? And unfortunately, you have Andrew Thomas on your team, which is fortunate, but also kind of whatever. Alt's already said that he's already looked into like getting ready to play right tackle if he had to. And I think that's partly because of the Chargers' possibility at 5. But this is a guy that I think if you ask him to do something on the football field, he's going to probably be able to do it very well. And that's really a big deal. When you're taking a guy in the top 5, top 10, it matters that you don't have a lot of concerns about his ability to not do something. Like it does matter in that case. But any other thoughts on the tackles before we jump over to interior, guys?
I would say I think this in looking at tape the last week in particular, this class more. I know it's a strong class, but this class more now than before. I feel like it's not just loaded, but it's like it's there with receiver. Where like in terms of ranking the players and who I would prefer, like I have Fashanu at 1, but like if I'm a team like the Chargers at 5 and I'm polling the room and the room is like, 55-45 alts, I'd be like, let's do it. You know what I mean?
Especially because you feel confident you can play right and Slater left.
And that's the thing that's so interesting about like how not just how good the class is, but how good the guys at the top are that it could be so like neck and neck, and you can understand an argument for both. Because like even though I have alt two, like it's almost like a 1A 1B for me in
Mhm.
many ways. And so yeah, like just like the receiver class, and there's going to be everybody, all of us have Harrison one, but there's those people out there that are like, I love Adunze, I love Neighbors, and you can kind of understand the argument. So like, it's just interesting how this class is very similar. This position, I mean, is very similar.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there's going to be guys that we didn't talk about today that are going to be impact players at the next level at some point. And generally there always is, but offensive line is definitely more like top heavy typically. I
Mhm.
don't know if that's the case this year. Like you said, I think there's a lot of guys that can play. So,
Yeah.
but let's jump into our interior guys here. So I'm going to go first here this time. Take the pressure off you guys a little bit. So I will say there's a couple tackles that could be guards that I decided not to put on here. I try to focus on guys who are already play interior or are already 100% expected to play interior, right? Because that kind of locks in one guy that's going to be very high on my list that is technically not an interior, at least it wasn't, but is going to be. But fifth for me, and it's a battle of the Christians for me at the bottom here. And I decided to, and not like, just so we're clear, not the religious Christian. I mean, I don't know what they believe. Anyway, Christian Haynes out of UConn is number 5 for me. He's one of the better pure guards in the class. Like in terms of guys who already play guard, has played guard throughout his college career. Like there's the pure guard class is kind of viewed not that great. It's really the centers and the guys who have position flexibility to play interior across the board that are getting most of the love. This guy has a really good prospect, I think. Like he moves super well. He's a shorter, stockier type 6'2", I think like 315. I think he was listed as something like that. I have to double check his weight 313. Good mover, really good on the move, especially. Not a ton of power, and someone with that leverage, the 6'2", you'd hope for a little bit more strength in his game, but I think that he does lack that a little bit. Perfect zone blocking guard, like for the direction the league is going in terms of all the Shanahan style schemes and the zone, outside zone, inside zone stuff. Like perfect fit for that type of offense, and I think that's probably one of the reasons he'll be drafted. Probably higher than at least one of the other guys I have on this list, but I think that again he's a great fit for that type of scheme. And again, like with a guard, especially if you're not going to be an elite pass protector, you better be able to run block your ass off. And I think he could definitely do that. And his movement skills also translate to his pass blocking a little bit. So that's who I have at 5 here. You guys have him in your top 5?
Oh,
yeah, I had him at 4.
Had him at 4? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I have him at 5 actually.
Oh, you have him at 5? Okay, cool. So, all right, Felix, if you have him 5 too, what do you think about him?
Yeah, you said a lot of the same things that really stuck out to me. I think he's a tenacious player. I think he's balanced in terms of like run and pass blocking.
Yeah.
And so like he seems to be a very polished guard. Even though so I think I've seen some places people have like size concerns because I think he's like 6'2" or something like that. But that's like
I'm okay with that at guard. Like your height at guard, unless you're really short or really small, like I'm not super worried about it because you have a better leverage advantage then. Like I'm not
exactly
concerned about that.
And he's a very I think a good like he's a balanced player, not just pass blocking, run blocking, but from the perspective of like the athleticism matching up with the polish and the refinement and the consistency. He was a very, very consistent and dependable guard in every aspect of the game. And so I thought he was very, very solid. I do wonder about like his ceiling. I wonder if like, is he going to be ever better than like a pretty mid-tier guard? I don't know, but I feel like he is a guy that cleanly translates. And it's like, if you need to find yourself basically like a starter and you're like, we're in the second, third round and we really like this kid, let's go get him. You're getting yourself a starter. It's just a matter of like, where's the accomplishment level? Is it going to be high tier or is he going to be mid tier or just like, borderline, like top 32 kind of player? But I think he'll definitely have like a long career because he plays so consistently and he's very dependable, like I said. And I think the thing for me too is that he doesn't stick out as a guy that I watch and I see like very, very glaring concerns, and I
Right.
watch like the line play, and I'm like, oh, he's the weak link on this play. He's the weak link on this play. Like, no, he's usually playing
Yeah.
very, very
I mean, at UConn,
but
know, he
yeah,
better be the best player.
yeah, no, absolutely.
No offense to UConn, but yeah, anyway.
But yeah, no, I like him because he's a really clean prospect.
No, that's cool though. Yeah, Jake, you have anybody trying to run through your house? I just heard something.
Yeah,
like that?
I don't know what is going on outside.
Felix
But
didn't
I
mean
don't
to-
know what.
I heard that. I'm like, oh, so hopefully nothing going on. No, you said you have him before Jake. So anything you want to add
Yeah.
with him?
Yeah, so it was between him and Cedric Van Pren for
Oh,
my
okay.
4th and 5th spots.
Okay.
I went with Haynes just because I think he has a really unique skill set. I see a lot of people worried about his size, but you kind of said it, Shane, at the guard position. It's not as big of a worry for me.
Yeah.
But I think he's kind of one of those plug and play guys. I feel like you could just put him on most offensive lines and he'll just do well. He's a good athlete, solid in pass protection. I think length could hurt him in pass protection a little bit, but it's not a huge worry for me. He's a great zone blocker. That's where you can really see his athleticism. But you guys are right. I think, his ceiling isn't going to be as high as some of the other guys in this class, but I think he's going to be he's going to have one of the better rookie seasons of most linemen in this class. Because
I think if he goes to the right place to start right away,
I think his skill set can translate really well at the next level.
This guy feels like a 49er to me. I'd be shocked if he's not a 49er on draft night because they have a bunch of picks in that range because they have all these comp picks and all this other crap. Like they love taking guys in the 3rd round specifically for whatever reason. I think if he makes it to them in the 3rd, especially, maybe even, because they do pick late in the 2nd, I could see them going there. They need help along the offensive line. Trent Williams isn't getting any younger. That was kind of one of the weak links of their team was every other position except for Trent Williams on the offensive line. So I could see him fitting in really well, or just any team that runs that type of scheme, right, where you just get him out on the move. He'll play really well. I have, for my 4th guy, I have the other Christian Mahogany out of Boston College. So if you're watching, if you check this out, who I'm talking about, Felix. BC guy, definitely check him out. Mitch Wolf on Twitter. Forget his ad, but if he sees this, big fan of your guy. He is a throwbacks throw. Like he is if you wanted to show somebody what it means to play guard, like especially like back in the day, like this is the dude you can point to. Just tough as shit, strong as hell. Isn't the best athlete. I think he's a good athlete. I don't think it's like that he can't do things athletically or anything like that, but you could tell this guy wants to just run through people's face. Like he wants to just eliminate guys from existence every single play. And there's an element of like, is he a better prospect than the other Christian? I'm not 100% sure, but I like this guy's game more. I just like watching him more. Like if that gets me in trouble to the point where like, oh, Jeff just talked about Tano interior offensive line. If he was playing inside, he'd be up there for sure. But I do think he can play a tackle. But no, like the second Mahogany here in this case, or second Christian in this case, I think that the way he plays is just super fun to watch. And there's a part of that like I have to factor in, like maybe I shouldn't care as much about that as I do, but like, man, I think other NFL guys, like if you're in a room with like scouts right now and you're watching, they're going to be like, listen, I want that guy on my team. I don't know how great he's going to be, but I want him to play for me. I don't want to play against him. That's kind of the thing with him, right? Is like, I think his run blocking and his power is just going to be huge against some of the smaller interior linemen we see nowadays too. Like we're getting smaller across the board on defense, and that benefits him. I'll tell you that much. There's not many guys who are going to be able to face him up in the run game and really move him very much. So I like his game a lot. I wonder if he'll be good enough as an athlete to pass protect consistently, but if there's going to be one weakness in your interior offensive line in terms of pass protection, we talked about how it's an issue in the NFL, but if he's going to erase people like he does in the college level, I'm okay with that a little bit. Like I can live with it. You can double team, you can protect him in the pass game, but get him going in the run game and you'll be doing just fine. So, but I don't know if either of you had him in your top 5.
I had him at 3.
Oh, you have him at 3. Okay.
Yeah. I'm very high on him. He plays with the mentality that I would want my offensive line.
Yes, exactly. Right. Exactly.
Like he's just tough and he wants to hurt people.
Yeah.
pass protection is a big concern for me.
Yeah, he
and it's
definitely needs to step up a little bit
it's
there.
hard to talk about him being 3 for me when we kind of started the show off talking about how
Right.
pass rush up the middle can be very detrimental. So maybe a little bit of a contradiction there. I do have to admit that is a big concern for me, but I think he's just such a dominant run blocker that it makes up for it a little bit.
Mhm.
And I think some of his issues are coachable.
Yeah, I think he
He's a
has the
little,
power to help. Like,
yeah,
there's times where he loses the power. I'm like, you shouldn't lose the power. Like, I think
yeah.
it's more to do with his hand placement, and he gets a little bit too low with his
He
hands
could
at times.
he can be a little grabby too
Yeah,
sometimes. I think he needs to have good coaching
yeah,
for him to hit his ceiling for sure, because some of his issues, if they're not coached well, I don't think he'll be able to get past. But I kind of just agree with you, Shane, where I just kind of watch him and I think
like,
like
yeah,
that's
I'll take
just
that
how
guy.
I want my line to play,
Yeah, I'll
But
take that guy.
there are some concerns, and I definitely understand people not having him as high as I do.
Right.
I definitely get that.
But yeah. By the way, real quick, who'd you have at 5? Because I don't know if I think we might have skipped over that for you.
I had Cedric Van Pran
Okay,
at
we'll
5.
we'll let you talk about him in a second. But Felix, what
Oh,
did you have anything to add to the mahogany conversation here? Have him in your top 5?
No, I think you guys hit everything. Pass blocking probably the biggest concern, but definitely like the make and model of a lineman that you want at the NFL
Yeah.
level. I mean, the attitude is there, and you see it. And he pops off tape. I had him at 6, so he was
Okay.
right there,
Right.
right outside my top 5. But yeah, I kind of had him neck and neck with the Christians, but
Right.
yeah.
Right. So real quick, Jake, because I don't, unless you have him in your top 5 somewhere too, Felix. Cedric Van Prant you might be the only one on his case here, Jake. So go ahead and tell us what you want to say about him here.
I like a lot of things. I think he's smart. He has great instincts. He's very athletic. He can get side to side quickly, which isn't as important on the interior line, but
Still a benefit though, I
it's
would say.
it's still something you want to see. He can play in different schemes, which I like. I have him at 5 because he's a bit over aggressive, and I think he also needs to get better in pass protection. Those two things were what puts him at the bottom of the list for me. But I saw enough. I think I'm higher on him than a lot of people are, but I saw enough from him to put him. He's right up there with. I saw a comment about Graham Barton. He's pretty much right there with Graham Barton for me.
All right, yeah. I'll say with him, my biggest concern is I just don't know if the athleticism is there enough to be an upper echelon center, because I do think he has to play center though too. So it's like, because we're seeing so often now that centers everyone wants Jason Kelce. There's only one Jason Kelce. Like I don't think we're seeing another Jason Kelce for a while. But like they want the guy that's like gonna get off the line and literally like run faster than the running back for half the play and like go take out somebody like 30 yards downfield. And it's just not very realistic a lot of the time. But still, I think athletic limitations are something you have to consider with taking interior guys more than ever now. And with Van Pran, I just think of the center prospect types, I think he's lacking behind a little bit in terms of athleticism. But like you said, smart player, he's going to be somebody who can kind of control your offensive line from day one. You got to be a smart player playing at that Georgia team and kind of running the show on offense there for them. So he's going to benefit from that. He's definitely a throwback type of center, I would say. Like, and then some teams could definitely use somebody like that for sure. Anything you wanted to add there, Felix, with him?
Yeah, I actually had him number 4.
Okay, you have him 4. All right.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, I liked him a lot.
I wasn't the highest on him.
I think you guys. You guys made the compelling case for me. I think he's a intelligent player with good power, and I think he has the resume to back it up. I think he has 43 starts or something like that, which is
somewhere in that range. Yeah,
crazy in the SEC, especially the defensive talent that's in the SEC.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like to me, he's kind of like Christian Haynes, where I think he's just a very clean projection. Like, center obviously maybe a little bit easier to like find. Not as much movement, you know what I mean, for the position, but you can see what like an excellent center can do for you, a la Jason Kelsey, who like the Eagles' offensive line has always been a strength for like his whole career. You know what I mean? And I think from an intelligence standpoint, that's something that Van Pran can bring, where there's a consistency and an experience that he has, an experience level that he has, that I think he's going to be able to assist in helping the front be cohesive. You know,
Yeah.
But yeah, I just and I think one thing that you noted, Jake, that it is a detriment, but I like it, is the fact that he's aggressive. I think it's great that you have someone who's aggressive at the pivot, because it can be, I think, so a bit not easier. What's the word I'm looking for? Like you're playing center, you're playing in the middle. If you're running interior, you're running off. You're running off. The ball's going away from you. You're running interior. You just got to take that first guy out, and that's like the really most important thing, you know, to open up that first hole. And I love that he plays with the aggressiveness to, like, he wants and desires to like somehow get to the second level and expand and make the line dominate. You know, that's something that I really enjoyed on tape. So yeah, got him at 4.
All right, fair enough. So I think we have all of our top 2 or our top 4, 5, and 4 guys listed here. I got Zach Frazier at 3, and it's really easy for me to put him at 3, mostly because I think he's the second best pure center prospect, and I think the centers are the best prospects of this interior group. The 2 guys I have ahead of him, or one is just, I think, the best player period in this group, and then also one that I think just has a little bit more versatility, probably can give you a little bit of different things. We'll talk about those 2 in a little bit. But Frazier, he has something in his profile that immediately struck me and made a ton of sense. And that is that he is a 4-time, I believe it was, wrestling champion in high school. Sure freaking looks like it when he plays. Like his core, like his ability, his core strength, his flexibility, like all of the things you need to be great at to be a great wrestler. It seems like it translates so well, especially to interior offensive line, because you have to be able to contort your body, you have to be able to get power in tough situations, get angles on guys, and try to kind of overpower them, and use your technique in his case as well to kind of get in the right position to beat defensive tackles inside. Everything he does, the strength that he does it with, the core flexibility, like I talked about, it just screams like day one impact starting center. And it just, there's not a lot of those guys typically, right? There's just not many that can come in and do that, especially at a level that I expect to be a really quality starting one right away. Like, I think he's the type of guy that could become one of those, like, he gets into the Pro Bowl a couple times, really well regarded in the league. Like, everybody likes playing with him because of the tenacity and his smarts as well. Like, I think Van Pran's probably the smartest center in this class in terms of doing all the extra stuff that you like to see. But I think Frazier does those things very well too. He does have short arms even for a center, kind of, and like that is something that can kind of show up sometimes. Doesn't have a ton of reach, but he's so technically sound. He has such good core strength that if he does get a hold of you, you're probably not doing a whole lot the rest of the play. Like, it just probably isn't going to happen, right? Like, and that's something that's, huge. When he makes it, when he does win, I should say, he really wins. Like, they're dominant wins, it feels like, and the losses are there, but they're not enough for me to be super worried about it. And he's one of those guys that does feel like a super clean, just like throw him in the league at starting center for some team. He's going to be really good, and that's worth probably a high day 2 pick, probably. But did you guys have him in your top 5 anywhere?
I had him at 2.
Okay, you have him at 2. Okay, Felix.
Yeah,
I had him at 3 as well.
Okay, so we have him at 3 too. If you have him at 3, Felix, do you agree with me on everything there? Do you anything you want to add there?
Yeah, no, I think you had a very cohesive description of what I had. I gotta be honest, I'm super biased because I used to wrestle in high school. So as soon as the guy has wrestle in background, I'm just like, oh, you know what, stock up.
It translates. It translates, man. It really does. Like, every time I hear about a prospect that wrestled at Inter, I'm like, okay, he's probably good.
Yeah, and it's funny because it definitively translates in more ways than one. Like, it's not just about like understanding leverage and like weight distribution and hand placement and everything, but like the tenacity and toughness that comes with wrestling. I mean, it's second to none, in sports. And I think having that mentality, knowing like I feel confident. I feel confident with Van Pran as well, but I feel confident with Frazier if I were to start him as a rookie center and I have like Dexter Lawrence in front of him, I'd be like, we might have to double team, but I think Frazier got it.
He, he's not going to look like he doesn't belong. Like that, I'm not worried about that at all with him. I have no concerns about that.
And it's going to be a fight. Like I feel like even if Sexy Dexy, as they call him, like gets the upper hand on him most of the game, that's going to be a conversation at the end of the game where Dex is like, "Hey kid, you played hard."
Like, you did good job.
Yeah, Frazier played. It pops up on the tape, and I mean, he's been a guy who started since his freshman year. I think he's the first true freshman to start at West Virginia since 19.
I forget what the specific is there, but I think you're right.
And then he actually did play like some guard like initially in his career, so there's like a little bit of position flexibility. I think he can play all three interior spots if you really, really needed him to.
Yeah, I think there's enough there for him to play guard if you wanted him to. I think he would be a disadvantage a little bit more than some of the other guys that have the flexibility there, but it's possible with him, whereas I think the other guys are definitely just guards or centers. So
yeah, but I do like his hip fluidity and how he's able to the athleticism just seems to translate very well in his game. So yeah, I like him a lot, having him at 3. So
and then Jake, you have him at 2. So anything else you want to jump on there with that? Why you have him higher?
You guys have covered him pretty well. I think he just, for me, is the exact center that I would want if I was building an offense. He just gets guys out of the way. He's very strong, where once he kind of latches onto his defender, they're not getting off. He keeps his pad level low. He's not going to be pushed back. I think the length is a little bit of an issue for him.
Yeah, it pops up sometimes, but it's center. It's the least concerning measurement of those guys.
I was also going to touch on some lateral movement might be an issue, but again, he's a center.
A little bit.
So it probably won't affect him as much as if he was playing a different line position. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm a little bit biased just because he's exactly what I would want in a center.
Yeah, right.
So I put him at 2, but yeah, I think you guys covered him pretty well.
All right. So yeah, I had him, like I said, at 3, and Felix had him at 3. So Jake, who do you have at 3 then if he's your 2?
I had Haynes at 3.
Oh, that's right. You had Haynes at 3. Yeah. Right. So you had him at 3. So okay, all of us have our top our first 3 talked about. So who wants to go for 2 then? I want to see what you guys have it. Well, Jake, I know you have it too. So who do you have at 2, Felix?
So at 2, I actually have Cooper Beebe. Is that how you say it?
Cooper Beebe. All right. Yeah, that's how you say it.
Beebe, I guess.
Yeah, I'd have to check, but
yeah, no, I think I came away liking his tape because he obviously a guard, but I think he plays with the tenacity that I want from a guard. He plays like he doesn't quit. He plays aggressive. I think he was pretty good in terms of hand placement. I thought his footwork can be a little bit sloppy, but I think like once he latches on, he like contends and he fights well. And I think the one thing that stuck out to me was you kind of saw it at the combine a little bit in some of the drills, but like the movement ability, I think, is definitely there. And I thought he was going to be kind of like limited, especially just watching him on tape. He seems to have like those old school like 90s pads, and he just looks like he's going to be moving well.
Yeah,
yeah. Like aesthetically, he just doesn't look that appealing. But I just I like his attitude, and I like how aggressive he plays. And it's difficult because I kind of wanted to put Barton here. But then I got like too indecisive about the whole like tackle guard thing because of the flexibility. So I'm like, who do I like as a pure guard as opposed to the iffiness? Since Barton is a bit of a projection. I would say though, like if you were taking that away, that like, you know, wishy-washiness, I think Barton's a better player, and I would put Barton at 2. If we were gonna line up or rank like offensive linemen regardless of position, I would definitely have Barton higher.
Right, and I wanted to mention with Beebe, like I really love his game. I just don't know, and I know at the combine it looked a little bit better. I cannot help but notice I just don't think he has the feet. Like I don't know if he can move well enough to be like anything more than like a maybe fringe starting guard, and you hope that it's like in a power scheme where he can kind of just move people out of the way.
Yeah.
And it's tough with him because again, he is a type of player that I really like. It's just I wonder if he's one of those guys that just the game has kind of moved beyond a little bit. Unfortunately, like in the same way, like Mahogany, like I have him higher than him, but I think he has enough athletic tools where it's not like a huge red flag for his ability to do that type of stuff, or at least there's potential for him to do it.
Yeah.
BB
Like
just feels like,
translatable.
yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like he feels like a player that would have been a second round pick in like 2004, and like that's awesome for him. Like I think he's a good player. I'm not sure if the league is going to look at him in the way that he would like them to. I do have Barton in too. So Barton is my number 2. I think that he just does so many things well, and he played so well at tackle in college, despite the limitations that he has in terms of his measurements. And I think it's going to like he's one of those guys. I feel like sometimes they try to pigeonhole players like him into guard because of the fact that like they just think, oh well, maybe he just doesn't have the profile to stick a tackle, and then you find out like just doesn't have enough power, doesn't have enough strength. Let's move him back out to tackle, and then they play well, right? Like, I kind of think of Luke Goddard for the Buccaneers last year, where they tried to move him inside, then it didn't work, and like, well, we need a right tackle because we want to move Wirfs to left tackle. Let's play him out. Then he plays way better than he did any other time in his career. And like sometimes you have to let those guys who are like the less like the more athletic but not as strong players sometimes just have to play a tackle to survive. With him, I think he has enough power in his game where I'm not worried about it being a huge issue. And the flexibility to play tackle, maybe if he needed to guard, and I think center, which is probably where he's going to fall eventually. I think he's going to slide into center at some point, whether it's right away or at some point. It's just that height and length, and this for a center, especially if he stays, because he's just under 33 inches. Like that's really good length too. Again, not as big of an issue at center, but still nice to have if you can have it. Just overall, I think the collection of athletic tools and his ability to play tackle at the college level will translate to his ability to actually play guard and center at the next level. So that's ultimately my spiel with him. I'm not sure where you had him, Jake, as far as Barton goes. I know, Felix, you kind of moved him because of his questions about what he's going to do. I get that.
Yeah, I didn't really know what to do with him just because
I
of the whole
get it.
position stuff. But I figured we were going to talk about him at some point. But yeah, I got a little confused on where to place him.
Yeah, I get like that's why like I thought about doing the same thing where I'm like I don't know what the league's going to put him at, but it sounds like it's going to be center actually, which is interesting to me. I'd try him at guard first to see if that's a better fit for him, but it seems like center's kind of where he's leaning. But either way, I like him a ton. But I think we've talked about everybody except our top one now, right? Our top guy, right?
I think
Jake,
so, yeah.
could you have a 2 again?
With Frazier, right?
Frazier, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. Yep. So now, are we all in agreement? I assume then, right, on who the number 1 guy in this class is? Jackson Powers Johnson.
Yeah.
That's what. Yeah.
This guy is a freak. Let me just start there. And at like to be 6'3", 330 at the Senior Bowl, at least. I forget if he weighed in differently at the combine. Obviously dealing with some stuff, so like he hasn't done the full range of testing and done everything because he had some injury stuff. But at the Senior Bowl, before he kind of had the little, I think it was a quad or thigh injury or whatever it was that knocked him out for the rest of the way, he was dominating everybody. It was not close. On his tape, you see the same type of stuff at Oregon. He just is different from the rest of these guys. Like all these players we talked about are very good players. They're going to be NFL players. A lot of them are going to probably be starters. This guy might go in the top 20 of the draft, and it's just not normal for a center prospect. It just isn't, right? Like that's all you need to know. Like the fact that he's probably going top 20, at least everyone seems to think so. Kind of like outside of like talking about the strengths, weaknesses, all that stuff, it kind of paints a picture about what he is as a player, where you can ask him to play guard for sure if you wanted him to. He played a game of defensive tackle last year, I think it was. Not last year, but the year before. Like they just needed somebody to play defensive tackle, and they're like, go in. Sure, why not? I think it was the bowl game in 2022. He can basically just do whatever he wants on the field because of his athleticism for a size of 330. Like it's just freak of nature stuff. I think he'll step in and probably be a top 10 to 5 center in the league by week 8. I really
Yeah.
think that. Like if he's asked to play center right away, which I think he will, depending on where he goes. But it's just again, you don't see guys that are interior players, especially centers, or at least guys that should be centers, go this high. And I think it tells you all you need to know. But anything you guys want to add with him?
Yeah, you kind of hit it on the head. I think any team during the draft that really lacks depth on the offensive line is going to be looking at a player like JPJ or Barton also.
Yeah, Barton too, but I think it's a clearer projection by a lot with JPJ.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, I mean, he's got good size. He's athletic. He's aware. He's good with his hands. I don't think he's too grabby at all. I think he has very good hand use. He's physical. He could maybe be a little bit quicker, but it's not a big. My main concerns with
when
him
he's
are
330 at a center, it's like
yeah, they're kind of nitpicks a little bit.
Yeah, it's
but,
like
yeah. But yeah, I think he's clearing away the top inside offensive lineman.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think all of the positives of like the previous linemen that we talked about in our respective lists, and then how we followed up a little bit with like if they just had this or if they just had that, like that would be something that would boost them up. And for me, he checks all those boxes. You know what I mean? And I feel like in terms of uh negatives or cons, like you're nitpicking, and I think the only reason why he's like just a top 20 potential pick is because he plays center.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
yeah, like he's as dominant at the position and in terms of like value and draft stock as like Marvin Harrison is at receiver, as like well for you too, as Alta is at tackle. You know what I mean? Like that clear projection, that clear athletic profile. He's a very clean prospect, and like you said, I was able to watch some of the Senior Bowls as well, and I mean he was just mauling people. Like there were a lot of reps where I was just like, oh, that was disrespectful. That was just a lot, and he plays like that consistently. There's this edge to him that I really like, but he has the polish. So yeah, just like clear far and away the top interior lineman. To the point that when I was like constructing this list, it was like, yeah, I had the whole thing about like like being wishy-washy in terms of like Barton and stuff like that, and then I settled on like BB at 2 because I'm like I really like the attitude. I love the like throwback kind of play. I think that gets something that can translate. And then when I'm looking at 1, I was just like, I don't know. I think I should put BB at like 6 because it was just like, why is he close? Why is he this close?
That's the problem with it. Is like when
Yeah.
you compare the rest of the class to him, it's like okay, like Fraser's a really good player, right? Jake, I have no problem with you having him at 2. I get it for sure. Barton is a projection, but I think he's very talented. I think he can do a lot of different things. I think Jackson Powers Johnson is just going to come in and be like, I'm better than a lot of the guys that I'm playing against.
Yeah.
And it's just not normal for a center, just isn't it?
Yeah.
Like Creed Humphrey did it. I do not think there's much of a difference between these two as prospects, if there is one, personally.
Yeah.
Now, Humphrey went much later, but I think the league realized, like, yeah, he probably should have gone a lot earlier than he did.
Yeah.
Like, I think the league's going to correct that a little bit when you have a prospect at his level. And I think even though Humphrey's been a great player, like I think he probably isn't as good of an athlete as Powers Johnson is. And I think it's one of those things where it's like you look at this guy like, all right, is he going to have anything that's going to keep him from being a Pro Bowl center? I don't think so. And if you can get a Pro Bowler in top 20 and like a guy that you feel confident is going to make the Pro Bowl early, that's worth a pick at pretty much any position, honestly. So it feels like a kind of a lock that he's going to go pretty early and ahead of maybe some of the tackles even we talked about, depending on the team needs and stuff like that.
On the team,
Like I look at Seattle, stare me in the face, like that would feel good if you're Seattle.
I think in both of our mocks we've put him to Seattle.
But
I just like looking at the position as like the interior prospects as a whole. I feel like everyone else I am studying and projecting, and
right.
JPJ, I'm like that's an NFL center.
Yes, that's kind of what it kind of comes down to. Is like with a guy like that, it's just really hard to not look at him and go, man, yeah, you're going to be good right now, like tomorrow. Like he could play a game tomorrow if you needed them to, and you're not going to really worry about it.
Yep.
And honestly, can't ask for much more in this league, right? Than that.
Yeah.
But that'll do it for the offensive line group, guys. Now, if you want to, I don't know how much time you guys have to mess around, but we could jump into a quicker than normal mock draft if you want to do that, because we haven't talked about the updated team needs with free agency happening and everything else. So if you guys want to, I'm totally cool with doing that. I'm trying to speed up a little bit if you guys are down
Yeah,
for it.
I'm down.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. We'll jump into it then. So let me go ahead and pull it up here.
He's already ready.
Oh, I had it just in case we were doing it. So got it. I mean, got to have it ready. So we'll obviously be controlling. We'll do first round mock here. So right off the bat, I'll say I will do evens because I know, Felix, I keep making you pick for your Giants. I'm not going to make you do it this time. I will be the one to do that. Now, we can do trades if we want, but probably not for this one just because we don't want to take too long. But if it's staring you in the face too hard, you can ask the other side of things. I'm okay with doing it by myself again, or if you guys want to team up with me, whatever you guys want to do, but you can split it up however you guys want to do that.
I'm good. I mean, if we want to go like lightning quick, I'm cool if like all three of us just go through and pick and just talk real fast, because I feel like it's going to be, if we're not trading, it's going to be easy for the top few picks.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, so again, we can do like, if you guys want to do like one down the line, or if you guys don't want to team up, that's fine too. But however you guys want to do it.
Yeah. I say we just blaze through it. Let's just try to go.
Cool. So yeah, we'll just go down the.
We could do just like 1, 2, 3.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, just go in the same order then. Yeah.
Okay.
So in that case, then I'll go first just because I don't think I have to think about it, right? Obviously. Go all. Yeah. Listen. In case anybody was still thinking that the Bears were going to actually trade this pick and they were going to keep Justin Fields. Well, Justin Fields is a Steeler now, and I don't know how to feel about it. And this is not the podcast that I'm going to talk about it on because I need more time to think about it. But he isn't on the Bears anymore. There's no questions about it anymore. Caleb Williams is going to be the first pick in the NFL draft. There we go. Jake, what would you do in this one? Because we are doing like what we would do still. I don't like doing the predictive mocks. We'll do one eventually, like closer to the end. But
yeah,
what would you?
What would I would do
if you're Washington? What are you doing here at pick 2?
I'd just take Drake May.
Okay, gotcha. All right, fair enough. I think there's a lot of overthinking going on with Drake May, by the way, right now. But we'll talk more about that in the future here. All right, Felix, if you're a Patriots fan, if you're a Patriots GM, who are you taking at 3?
If I'm the GM, I'm taking Jane Daniels.
Fair enough. Yeah, you got to get the quarterback eventually. You might as well take a guy that people like a lot. So let's go, Jaden Daniels here. All right, Cardinals on. Yeah, go ahead. Give me Marvin. No questions asked. I'm just gonna be like,
nothing to see here, dude.
Yeah, once Marvin's on the board, the pick is Marvin Harrison. Basically, is what I'm thinking there. Chargers is 5 here. Jake, what are you doing? I think I know what the Chargers want to do, which is not pick here. But in this case, we're not doing that. Where are you going if you're sticking at 5? Who are you taking?
I'm gonna go Joe Alt.
All right, that does.
We're gonna form a nice tackle pair. I really want to go Neighbors, but I think there's just so many good pass rushers in the division now.
It is really important to protect your asset that might not have to throw as much anymore, considering who's coaching him. But we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll go Alt here then. Do I even need to ask you, Felix? Do you want to do something different than I expect, or what's up?
No, I think it's difficult because those two guys are there.
Yes.
But I am going to go with Dunze. I think they're going to want size. Even though I want Neighbors, but no, you know what? I'll go with Dunze because they need a Plex. I'll go with Dunze.
There you go. All right, boom, got it. All right, Titans up for me now. They addressed receiver, if you want to say that, getting Calvin Ridley for $23 million a year, $50 million guaranteed. Good for them. I don't.
That was a gamble.
Yeah, I'd say it's a gamble for sure. Just to put it nicely, I'm going for Shanu here. Alt's off the board. They need tackle. They just cut Dillard too, which fair enough. Probably should have. Did not play well for them at left tackle. Another weapon would be great in the event that he doesn't work out, but I think you got to address offensive tackle while you can. So we'll go for Shawnee there. Jake, Falcons 8 got their quarterback, Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, they got their guy.
Got their boy. A lot of money still, but that's that. Listen, Kirk.
Another big Kirk Cousins contract.
Yeah, another bag by Kirk Cousins. What do you expect? What else do you expect? So
every player in the league should be trying to find his agent.
They should. I forget who his agent is, but they should be hiring him for sure. You have a lot of talent on the board here. You got all the defensive players still on the board. There's Malik Neighbors is sitting there. A lot of guys here.
Let's go. We're gonna go Byron Murphy.
Byron Murphy, ooh, fun interior player. All right, go Murphy 8. Neighbors. And then yeah, it's Neighbors. Neighbors, DJ. So let's break this down for a second for the Bears. You got Caleb Williams, you got Keenan Allen, you got DJ Moore, you got Malik Neighbors, you got tackle eligible as JT07 likes to call him, and Cole Kmet. You got decent offensive line that's still growing. That's pretty good for rookie quarterback, I would imagine. So that's pretty nice to see. All right, so going to I get the pick for the Jets. Oh man, well the top 2 tackles are gone. They did sign Tyron Smith for a year, which
they traded for Morgan Moses, right?
They did trade for Morgan Moses, so they're good at tackle for this year, but I could still see them doing that. I'm going to do the thing that I think would be the most fun. That's taking Brock Bowers and putting him in the offense with Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers for maybe a year. Right. I think he didn't get picked to be the vice president candidate, so I think he's going to probably play football. Yeah. Also, hopefully he believes in certain things and doesn't. Let's not talk about that.
Real quick. It was a funny joke. Nina Kimes tweeted about it because the person that got pegged as that vice presidential candidate, Shanahan.
Yes.
So she was like, yet again, a Shanahan.
Get him again. Got him again. No, that's good stuff. All right, Vikings up here, Jake. So you have a decision to make here because you might not want to do it, and this isn't what you would do, Mock, but they did trade for a pick. Like in this case, you didn't have to trade up, but do you take the quarterback? Do you take McCarthy here, who's probably going to go much earlier than this based on what we're hearing?
Yeah, you have to go McCarthy, I think, just because
with the way they're setting
we have the Broncos and Raiders after.
Yes,
and I think both of those could very well take McCarthy.
Gotcha.
He could be gone. I think there's a good chance he might be gone by this pick too.
I think he will be gone by pick 6. I think that I just think so, like I'm not saying that I would do that. I'm not there on him at this point, but for everything we keep hearing, I don't think it's like the Will Levis thing where like I know I got by that someone's gonna take him real high. I don't think this is the same thing. I think that it's certainly seeming like it's a real thing. But so we'll go McCarthy here, and we got Broncos up for you, Felix. What are you doing if you're Sean Payton?
Oh man, see, I hate this because like. If I'm Sean Payton, I know exactly what I'm doing. Yes. But if I'm doing it, if it's me,
you got to do this. Like you got to try to keep it like within what you would want to do here.
It sucks.
Right?
Who's at the top?
Right now we got Cooper DeJean as the best player according to PFF.
They did lose some defensive, or it might have just been Simmons. I don't know if they lost any.
Mostly Simmons, I think.
Simmons, right?
Yeah,
you know what? Because I think he's worth it. I'm going DeJean.
Yeah, I think he can play everywhere. I think he could kind of do a lot of things for you early, so I get that. All right, Raiders. All right, Jake, I'm going to hopefully not break your heart here. I'm thinking about what I want to do here. I don't think you want a quarterback in this spot. I don't think the other two are worth the top 15 pick at this point. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. You said you agree. They kind of, I mean, how do you obviously we're not taking running back here or anything like that, but like Zamir White being the starting running back at this point is interesting. I don't know how I feel about that.
I think they're gonna probably pivot towards more of like a group running back.
Right. I think so too.
I don't
just smart for them.
Zamir White had some nice.
He did.
I'm not gonna get into it like too deep, but he had some nice games to end the season, especially against the Chiefs. But I don't think he's ready to be.
Right. I don't think so either. But they'll figure it out. But for me, weirdly enough, in this particular mock draft, because of like the lack of movement and everything, and the fact we're not doing trades or anything, I think before a single edge goes off the board, I think we're gonna have the top 2 interior players. I'm gonna go Drazon Newton here to the Raiders, pair him up with the pass rush that they did with Christian Wilkins, with obviously Tyree Wilson from last year, Max Crosby. That could be a front 4 to deal with for a long time if they want to do that. So that would be fun. Then we got you up here then, Jake. What do you got here for the Saints 14? Couple tackles still here. All the edges are here. Definitely a lot of options here.
The Saints are an interesting team to draft for. I'm going to probably go with Fatanu, I think.
Gotcha. I think that they need a lot of tackle help because Ramczyk, I don't even know what his status is at this point, if he's even going to be playing this year. I know he's got a lot of injury issues going on. Trevor Penning is just bad at football. Really good at throwing guys into the legs of the quarterback at the Senior Bowl. Not much at anything else.
Yeah.
Great at much else. That's still an interesting decision to do that. But go Fatanu here. Okay, 15, Felix. What do you got here for the Colts? A lot of good corners still on the board. Receiver is still a possibility for them too. You got guys down the board. So what do you think?
If it is me, and considering that L'Jarius Sneed trade is not happening, or
seemingly, at least seemingly not, yeah.
Whatever the hell is happening there, I'm gonna go corner. And personally, I know we haven't gotten to that point yet because we haven't talked the position yet. Yeah. But the way I have it right now, I'm going Terry and Arnold.
Terry and Arnold. All right. Makes sense to me. Get a corner in that room, young cornerback group. Seattle at 16. I think we know where I'm going. I think we know what I'm doing. We just talked about it. Might as well keep it going, right? JPJ, welcome to the same area, almost the same area that you're already in.
Right.
As the guys on the stock exchange talk about low moving costs, getting them up there. Not going to worry about that. Shout out the Stock Exchange podcast. But let me throw him here. All right, Jake, you're up here at 17 with the Jaguars. Receiver becomes a big need, possibly. I know they signed Gabe Davis, but does Gabe Davis keep you from doing anything? I don't know. I don't think so, but no offense to Gabe Davis, but corner still a thing.
I think
they did sign some interior people free agency, right?
They re-signed Ezra Cleveland to play guard. I know that. They signed Morse to play center, so their interior is pretty locked up, I think. Tackle should be. So offensive line is probably not a huge. I know they have guard center, but I think this is maybe not updated for free agency yet. So
I'm gonna go Dallas Turner.
Ooh, okay, that'll be fun. Trayvon Walker maybe just either plays a different role or just doesn't.
Wow. Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. The hate thing is too far. That's too far. I'm not gonna.
Quick note: would this be the furthest that a draft has gone without a pass rusher in a long time?
Yeah, that was kind of my reasoning for taking him. I was like, at some point, we're gonna have to start.
Yeah, the value gets pretty crazy. Yeah, Dallas Turner. All right, so we'll go Dallas Turner here. You said so. All right, Fix on the clock for the Bengals. Plenty of tackle options still, actually. So that's interesting. Definitely. One.
Yeah, I think we did it before. I'm gonna go Latham here. I think
Latham, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll throw him on the board here. Rams. So they have a huge need at corner still. I will say that. They did bring Darius Williams back, which was a great ad for them because he was great for them whenever he was playing for them before. So I get that. Still, that corner room still doesn't look great. I will say that. But I have a hard time at this point thinking that, especially with the loss of Aaron Donald to retirement, we didn't even talk about that. What a career for him. Go out on top. Hopefully we'll see you at some point again. I'd love to see him come back, but I think he's done enough. He doesn't have anything to prove, so no worries there. I'm going to go verse here and just add a power element to the pass rush for them. Kobe Turner played really well. I think that he can kind of hold things down there. Maybe they can get another piece down the board, but verse, like I said, the pass rushers kind of need to come off the board, and I think he can go here. So we'll throw verse here. All right, Jake, you hold my life in your hands right now. Okay, that's all I'm going to tell you. what are you going to do to my Steelers? What are you going to have them do here to try to, maybe it's protect the quarterbacks, maybe it's help the defense. What do you want to do?
Did they trade? Why am I forgetting his name?
Deontay Johnson?
Yes, or
They did trade.
I thought I remember that. Okay, so
they did trade him. So receivers certainly in play more than I would have thought this early, but yeah.
Yeah, I kind of really want to go receiver here.
All right, so you got, and that's what you want to do. You got Thomas Jr. here, Adonai Mitchell, McConkey. That's kind of who the top guys are listed here right now.
Let's go Brian Thomas.
Okay, that's actually the guy that I was probably thinking if you're going to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Felix, what do you got for the Dolphins here at 21?
So
a lot of lines still here. A lot of linemen help that you get. That's a big thing.
Man, yeah, this is a hard one. So I'm not too familiar with their free agency.
So as far as I remember, I know they lost a lot, but I think they did
lost a lot of players.
Let me actually pull it up here for you. So they brought in
Poyer,
they added Poyer, they added Jordan Brooks at linebacker, tight ends cleared up for a year or two with Smith, Johnny Smith going there.
Yeah.
Didn't do much they did bring in an edge with Shaquille Barrett, but it's 1 year, $9 million. They bring back Robert Jones, but lost a lot of their interior offensive line, especially. So they bring in Aaron Brewer, which is interesting, but still.
That's interesting because I feel like 21 might be high for the other interior guys.
Right.
So you know what? I'm just gonna go best player. And if I'm the Dolphins, I'm running the show. I'll go Latu. I think it never hurts to get a pass rusher, and that's true.
Would allow you to maybe the Chubb contract could get dicey pretty fast, in my opinion. I still view him as more of a truly number 2 type guy. So maybe that gives you the opportunity to get out of that contract in the near future. Then it can be Phillips and Latu as the kind of the bookends. 2 guys who were at UCLA at one point and had to kind of do different things. So we'll throw him here, and then Eagles at 22 for me. Now, at this point, with what they've done in free agency, they get Saquon Barkley. Forget what else they did here. They got, let me pull it up. Actually, I wanted to double check. Traded for my former quarterback for some reason. That was wild.
that was wild.
Happy they get Bryce Huff. That's a big one. Gardner Johnson comes in to play safety. A noticeable lack of corner in their free agency, and I have a feeling there's a reason for that because I think they're hoping somebody like Quinyon Mitchell will be at 22, which I doubt personally in real life, but definitely taking him for their scheme. So we can throw him here. All right, so we back up with the Vikings here, Jake. You took a McCarthy for them at 11. Now they have pick 23 thanks to that trade with the Texans. Who you taking here at 23 to help out? Yeah, you are.
I kind of want to go Barton here. I think
that would be fun.
They need. It says here they need guard and center. I think he's the most versatile
guy left. I would say. So yeah, that would say left.
I'll go Barton. I think he can shore up some.
All right, let's throw Barton in here. Felix, we got you with not your Cowboys, your enemy Cowboys, Felix. Now remember, this is what you would do, but we're talking about what you would do to help them. Okay, don't take I don't know. Don't give them I don't know. Actually, all these players are pretty good. Anyway, just don't give them somebody stupid. All right, let's do that much at least. What do you think for them?
That's funny. Oh, these bastards. Okay.
Aaron Smith gone, so could use some tackle help possibly. That's definitely an option.
That's funny. That's exactly what I was thinking. If I'm running the show and I'm the Cowboys, I think I'd go Mims here.
Mims would be very talented, very fun talent for them to bring in that I think that could learn from the guys that they still have there. So that'd be fun. So bring in him. All right, I'm on the clock with the Packers, which I hate because I don't want to look up the thresholds right now. Brian, guy with us for ATB, if you're watching, I apologize if I take somebody who they would not take. I'm not interested in looking up the thresholds right now. I know that they're a thing for them. But I do think at this point, offensive line in general, they could use some depth and some guys that could maybe come in and take a spot at some point. Fuaga, I don't know if he's going to pass their testing metrics in terms of like the athleticism and stuff like that, but he feels like he'd be a fun piece to add with especially with Josh Jacobs coming in there and kind of maybe trying to run the ball with a lot more power than they've done in the past. So I'll go Fuaga here to get him off the board. Definitely a little bit too far of a fall, probably. Bucks at 26 here, Jake. What are you thinking for them now?
This is another interesting team. I think I'm going to go Nate Wiggins.
Ooh, okay, fun, because they did get rid of what's his face, the one corner.
I'm forgetting his name.
I can't think of his name. That sucks right now. I can picture him actually. Carlton Davis traded him to the line.
Yeah.
So got rid of Davis. So yeah, adding a really long athletic corner definitely make a lot of sense. So bringing Wiggins here. And Felix, you're up on the clock with the Cardinals, who have already gotten Marvin Harrison Jr. 4, thanks to me. Who are you going to pair him with here?
Yeah. Let's see. You scroll down a little bit. Ooh, yeah, this is interesting. Yeah, can you go back up real fast?
Yep.
I would go in this situation. Damn, I would trade, but
yeah, that's kind of the thing.
The way
they did bring in Jonah Williams for 2 years to kind of play right tackle, so I think the tackles at least are kind of taken care of for the time being because Paris Johnson's probably going over to the left side, but they still have a lot of holes on, like especially defense and the secondary, especially corner. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Corner. I know the guard center thing is big because they want to bolster their interior, but it's too high.
Frazier is sitting there, depending on how you feel about taking him in the first.
That's true. Yeah. You know what? I am going to go with. I'm gonna go with Kool-Aid.
I was gonna say that's also I think a good fit because you need some more outside corner depth there.
I think he's a solid player. Yeah, beside that battle.
All right, Bills. Adonai Mitchell. No questions asked. They need Gabe Davis, who might be better than Gabe Davis, and that would be A.D. Mitchell. So tall, athletic, outside receiver. Boom, there you go. Pretty easy for me there. Fun fit. Jake, what you got at 29 here with the Lions?
When I think of the Lions, I immediately want to go defense, but they did pick up.
They definitely went pretty hard on defense. They brought in corners with Trey. They got Marcus Davenport for a year.
Yeah.
Retained Emmanuel Mosley. Brought in DJ Reader. A lot of good stuff there. But again, they still could use some help there, so I wouldn't blame you. But really, whatever you want to do here. They do have questions in the interior now because they let Jonah Jackson go. They did bring back Graham Glasgow. I know they did that, and they also brought in. Is that the only guy they brought? Yeah, it was the only actual lineman they brought back, so that could be a problem for them.
I think we'll go Zach Frazier.
All right, I can see that being a fit. Because I think Ragnall's definitely been dealing with some injury stuff, so maybe they can't fully rely on him, and then if not, maybe Frazier can fill in for a year at guard or something like that.
Like the attitude fit.
Yeah, that also makes a lot of sense from an attitude perspective too. All right, you got the Ravens on the clock, Felix. How are you going to help the Ravens make me sad? What's your plan here?
Man, this is interesting. I feel like at this point, we're starting to reach that second tier, like second round. Man, you know what? There's no. I don't even have to think. What am I doing? Oh damn! But they traded Morgan Moses.
They did trade Moses. Wait, now I think that they believe in Falele from Minnesota drafted a couple years ago. That was like 380 pounds. I don't know if I would personally, but it sounds like they might. So that's not a guarantee. They're looking up for it there, but
go to the receivers for me, please.
I know the top guy right now is McConkey. You got Franklin, Roman Wilson, Ricky Pearsall. A couple guys here that are interesting.
Yeah, if I'm the Ravens, I would go Franklin.
Okay, good Troy Franklin here. And then I got the Niners up here. For me, offensive line and corner are definitely big issues. I think I'm probably going to – Guyton didn't test as well as I wanted him to for like being a guy that's billed as like the upside play. But they could use some help at tackle still, especially either when Trent Williams decides to retire or really the right side is still not that great either. I'm going to go Guyton here, kind of let his slide happen or end here. And then, Jake, the last pick in this mock goes to you, to your division rival Kansas City Chiefs.
How can I destroy this team?
Exactly. How can you destroy that team? Like, how can you help them destroy you? That's really what you're trying to do technically here.
Unfortunately, they don't need much help with that. But
no, they don't.
I'm gonna go. I think Lad McConkey.
Yeah, it feels.
It has to be the best receiver available at this point is who I would draft if I was.
It feels that way. And like I will say, like they brought in Hollywood, which does scare me a lot. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you.
I forgot about that.
Because again, that's an entirely different player, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Think about a lineup of Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice just running 4-yard slants and curl like crossers to kill you to death, and Lad McConkey absolutely dicing up a defender in the middle of the field. It's not great. Don't love that for anyone else but the Chiefs. It's not great. So I think you did the right thing to yourself there. But
it's fitting. Our last pick is a guy whose name kind of fits with the holiday today.
Yeah,
he's a wee lad.
There it is.
A horrible joke. I'm so sorry.
Hey, listen, I went to a St. Patrick's Day party yesterday for my girlfriend's grandparents. So many people. They love it around here. I'm telling you what, St. Patrick's Day in Pittsburgh area, people love that.
There was like restaurant crawl out here too. It was insane. Everyone wearing green and
I don't own any green clothing. I found out when I was going because I'm like, gosh, working with green. Not a single thing. Not one piece of clothing.
I got this one
stupid hat.
This one A's jersey I'm wearing. That's the only
exactly.
green clothing I have.
I'm not a fan of any green teams in particular. I don't have any just random green clothes. Like it's like I felt bad, but I'm like, guess I just gotta wear. They had stuff that you could put on. Like I wore this actually kind of cool light up hat that was green. That was kind of fun. But that'll do it for us this week, guys. We'll be back next week. I believe we're jumping into defense now. I think we're finished up with the offense. We're going to be jumping into the defensive guys. Be a lot of fun. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's defensive interior first. I'm going to have to double check my my show notes here, but we will be back next week to talk about that. Might get a show in midweek at some point if I decide that I want to try to do that. Keep you guys posted if we do decide to post. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll be back, like I said, next week and continue our draft coverage for this draft. It's going to be a lot of fun. Been a lot of fun so far. Thank you guys for watching.